Peter Greenaway is a mad genius, and his run in the 80s and 90s deserves a lot of praise. Have you seen The Cook, the Thief, His Wife and Her Lover? It's a crime drama art film full of Baroque imagery, acerbic humour and ghastly depravity. Now I would give my testicles, both testicles, if it meant I would be able to make a film as good as The Cook, the Thief, His Wife and Her Lover one day. It would also be an appropriate sacrifice given the content of this masterpiece. Greenaway is a brilliant man who understands exactly what the cinematic art form can be. It isn't a play. It isn't a novel, nor is it a painting. It can be like a comic book with its assemblage of intricate panels or frames, and yet with a moving camera one can affect our perception of those static images and create new compositions seamlessly. You can have a painterly colour scheme, costumes that would be found on a New York runway, and music that would arouse any classical music buff. There are so many styles on display in a movie, and yet film is still its own thing, an art form a part of, and yet apart from everything else around it. The Cook, the Thief, His Wife and Her Lover combines so many art forms to create something new, and it reminded me a lot of the novel Gargantua and Pantagruel. In the least pretentious way possible, as I've been called that on more than one occasion, I encourage you all in the least pretentious way to read Gargantua and then listen to the dialogue in this film. I think Greenaway is playing in the world of Rabelais here, where one has a prodigious knowledge, a humanistic streak, and a bawdy sense of humour, and is weaving these disparate elements together to create something timeless, and which of course allows him to show off in the process. Let's be honest, a need for validation plays a big role in a lot of artistic endeavours.
Somebody please pay attention to me. Hello, pay attention to me, look at me!
Consider this line from Albert Spicker, the thief, regarding fine cuisine. What you've got to realise is that a clever cook puts unlikely things together like duck and orange, like pineapple and ham. It's called artistry. This describes The Cook, the Thief, His Wife and Her Lover to a T, a combination of high and low culture elements to create an art film for the ages. Ironically, the observation comes from the least sophisticated character in the film. Incidentally, it's also my argument whenever someone questions the validity of Hawaiian pizza. You're a Philistine, mate. That's a great pizza. And so this review will go over numerous things which Greenaway brings together to create his masterpiece. It's not a 6-hour long video though, so I do recommend you go see the film itself for the full experience. Now first, a quick plot synopsis to give those who haven't seen it some context. The thief, Albert Spicker, played by Michael Gambon, has taken over a French restaurant called La Hollandaise, which is run by the cook, Richard Borst, played by Richard Bohringer, and yes, he's French. Spicker is a brutish cunt who likes to torture his wife, Georgina Spicker, played by Helen Mirren, and Mirren delivers an exceptional performance here which establishes her forever as a rare talent. Georgina strikes up a relationship with her lover, Michael, played by Alan Howard, who is a quiet bookworm with a lovely uncut gem, it must be said, and who is able to use said gem to awaken love and desire in Georgina, something Spicker could only dream of. A relationship blossoms at the restaurant which everyone visits night after night, and after much tension and eroticism and monologuing, events culminate in a very poignant and brutal finale. So the first thing to talk about is the direction, and it should be said up front that I'll be using a few examples to illustrate my points, but by no means should you interpret this as the only available examples. Do you see this painting? It's featured prominently throughout the entire film, and it is included as a wonderful commentary on class and nobility, though it's never explicitly stated. The painting is called The Banquet of the Officers of the St. George Militia Company in 1616, and was made by a Dutch painter named Frans Hals, who may or may not have painted it when he was 33 years old. Remember that. Also note that 1616 is 16 plus 16, which equals 32, and the number on Spicker's car has the number 32 on it alongside the word hex. Hold that off to the side until later. Now, the men in this painting were various prominent officials of the time in business, politics, and the military, and the portrait was done at a banquet to celebrate their service. Hence its title. The painting is included very obviously to draw a parallel between the thief and his cronies who have forced their way into high society. It draws this connection to offer a critique about political figures of the time when Greenaway was making the film. The noble aristocrat of yesteryear is now a rapacious beast with no sensitivity or sensibility, as evidenced by Spicker trashing Robert's love for books and being entirely focused on stealing from others for his own gain. This is worth thinking about in 2023 because a lot of films or TV shows are very political, but they're extremely juvenile in their execution.
You've got to do better, Senator.
Greenaway doesn't force his ideas down your throat. Instead, he presents them to you with full expectation that, like a good parable, those who have eyes to see will see. I'll touch on this further when I speak about the script, but it's a great place to begin when looking at his direction, because subtlety is the word of the day. Furthermore, you don't need to know anything about the painting to be able to infer its meaning. We have noble gentlemen in the background and absolute dogs in the middle and foreground. Easy to comprehend and dissect at your leisure after the credits roll. Another example is the very strong blocking during dining sequences paired with very precise cutting. This is where we get to see Greenaway merge three distinct styles into one: a play, a painting, and a film. Firstly, when the camera is static and wide, we have figures arranged like they're in a painting. Secondly, when in this position, the actors perform like they want those in the back row of the auditorium to hear them, and so everything is far more melodramatic. But then when we move to a mid or close-up shot, everything changes and the actors are far more subtle, allowing their faces and tone of voice to convey ideas like a good film actor. So to see an example of this in motion, you have a sequence like the one here, where we follow Tim Roth's Mitchell from the kitchen and over to Spica's table. He makes a face which clearly indicates everything is fine for Spica to do his worst. The shot is wide so we can all see the characters and how they respond to the battered Georgina and Spica's burgeoning assault. We don't cut in close on the bruises or the expression on the faces of the men, some of whom don't agree with the abuse she has suffered, like Corey, who you'll notice stands up in a manner like one who would defend Georgina here. We have lateral movement now, retaining the sense of this being a painting, and see numerous figures within the restaurant who don't even seem to notice Spica or respond to his actions. Some even appear like mannequins with carefully contorted poses of elegance. We get to see all the restaurant staff observing through veiled eyes the events, and some you'll notice begin to fray, hinting briefly at their inevitable coup in the third act. We see Georgina and Spica fight, and as Georgina grows in confidence, she moves forward to confront the bully. Greenaway shows us everything but never forces our attention on one particular detail, and so he allows us to read the image like a painting, to gain an understanding from it by focusing on any element we choose. He allows Spica and Georgina to throw their body around and raise their voice like a play. But, okay, I must pause here to avoid a copyright issue. Now while we wait, I gotta give a shout out to Paul Thomas Anderson's Licorice Pizza. Firstly for this neat 33 reveal. Focus on the top right corner. We get the model. We get Gary Valentine knocking over the sign. We get the reveal of C3 after the sign falls. Now what's the third letter of the alphabet, guys? I'm not crazy, that was intentional. I think I'm not crazy. Also, PTA is one of the few directors to use a moving mirror in this gorgeous sequence at the start of Licorice Pizza. The only other films I could think of where the mirror or a window, any reflective surface really, is physically moved by an actor in the shot rather than just being fixed were Prospero's books, Playtime, and Goodfellas. Can you really call yourself a great filmmaker if you don't have a moving mirror sequence in your filmography? For what it's worth, I have a moving mirror sequence in my screenplay. Do you want to hear a funny story? A few months ago, I was lying awake in bed, racking my brain as to how I could get enough money to make a mid-budget art film which absolutely will lose money at the box office. And I had a brilliant idea. I'm going to move to Los Angeles and seduce Dana Walden and Donna Langley. Now, I readily admit that my plan has some holes in it, but I've got a good feeling about this one. If men and women are truly equal, then I don't see why the casting couch can't go both ways. I will gladly sleep my way to the middle. But hey, maybe you're just not as progressive as I am. Now back to mirrors and PTA. He's one of the few modern filmmakers that is thinking about the little details and deserves a lot of praise for it. I've taken to calling him Mr. R&D when I talk to myself at 3:33 AM while smoking cigarettes and getting a tan from the blue light on my computer. Anyway, I probably need to get another hobby because I've spent far too much time thinking about movies, and I think it might make me come across as a little weird, a little maladjusted perhaps, maybe lacking in social graces. I was thinking to balance myself out that I should get back into playing tennis. Tennis. But then Greenaway will have scenes like this where we cut from Georgina looking at her would-be lover and sharing this quiet moment between the two. He uses a mid-close-up to bring us into the secret dialogue they share in this very public environment, and everything is conveyed with subtle non-verbal expressions that can only be found in cinema. It's the kind of stuff that would make Alfred Hitchcock himself nod along and say, he gets it. At the same time, the film isn't a series of talking heads with no attention given to other storytelling components. Notice how a red spotlight fills the white room whenever the door opens? It's a quintessential theatre moment. The spotlight illuminates the set, conveying a particular meaning based on colour theory, and yet it's integrated into the reality of the picture like a good film will do with its lighting. No one is turning a red light on and off within this world. Instead, a red light intrudes upon the white room whenever a door is opened, and in so doing it conveys ideas about danger and lust intruding upon this oasis for Georgina to escape to. It seems silly to talk about it, but that's a combination of elements which breathes life into the picture. Here's a final one. Georgina and Robert have numerous sex scenes in the kitchen, surrounded by dead animals, beautifully foreshadowing events and portraying these doomed lovers as figures within a painting. But then, during a moment where they share a conversation, we move into something personal. The camera pushes in and the set is reduced in its significance as we move from painting to film. We then get a very nice conversation as a two-shot, which you'll find in just about any film where lovers are in bed together. You have a combination of elements again to tell a rich and visually arresting story. There's so much more to The Cook, the Thief, His Wife and Her Lover, so again, go check it out if you haven't already. Of course, another real strength is the writing. Greenaway is a very cerebral guy, as evinced by films with extended dialogue sequences concerning zoology or the intricacies of British party games. And so his script has dirty jokes aplenty, including an extended sequence regarding what an elegant stripper should act like. There's a discussion about the eating habits of dictators, a discussion about the value of literature and public taste, about the pricing model for a fine restaurant. So many detailed conversations about all manner of stuff which are full of subtext. Remember the earlier comment about subtlety? Subtext is the dialogue equivalent of that painting. A character doesn't just spell out what they're thinking, they use conversations about one thing to say something else entirely. And so Georgina will tell Spicker she's seeing a gynecologist, intimating that she's having an affair. Michael, wanting to get in on the digs, remarks that he's a gynecologist. They are expressing their contempt for Spicker, but they don't just state that aloud. Though I must say that I do have some issues with Greenaway's dialogue, so I wouldn't call it a perfect screenplay, but merely near perfect. Oh, how shameful. A few more examples. Spicker conflates food and people throughout the film, such as condemning Chinese food while insulting a Chinese person. As such, when he wants to destroy someone, he speaks of eating them. Spicker also praises the eating habits of various dictators and political figures, while having the militia painting in the background, all of which conveys how Greenaway sees these new elite in England. The MCU could learn a lot from this.
You've got to do better, Senator.
And I must add here that I don't think you have to sacrifice intelligence in order to create a fun comic book movie. I think we just need to demand more from Hollywood. I must pause again to avoid copyright issues. And so I thought I'd give a big shout out to Taylor Hackford and David E. Kelly for doing a great job in marrying Helen Mirren and Michelle Pfeiffer. Nerdy looking dudes locking down true blue hotties who still have it going on in their granny years is a massive achievement. There should be an honorary Oscar for stuff like this. Now, to avoid any Me Too drama, it should obviously be handed out in secret. You could do it at the Masonic Lodge with the boys at the 33rd hour of the 33rd day in the 33rd month of the 33rd year. Because you gotta show respect where it's due. That's the point. These mad lads are the real kings of Hollywood. Would you like to hear a fun synchronicity story? I watched Eli Roth's Thanksgiving recently and loved it. I then rewatched The Cook, the Thief, His Wife and Her Lover to prep for this review. Finally, I picked up Mark Millar's great comic book Wanted Volume 1 because I needed to take a break from moving images and focus on static ones for a bit. And do you know what happened? Can you guess what occurred? I saw a cooked human being in all three. What are the odds that this would happen back to back to back in a 24-hour period? Is God trying to tell me to become a cannibal? And now we're gonna pivot to Fashion by Jean Paul Gaultier. Now I can't dress myself to save my life. I just copy James Dean and wear jeans and a white t-shirt with boots. I don't think that's particularly fashionable, but I figure if it's good for the goat, then it's fantastic for a guy of my meager station in life. But fashion is an important part of any good film and is especially important in such an opulent feature as The Cook, the Thief, His Wife and Her Lover. Obviously, you've got a story of excess and high society, and so everyone is looking dapper and bejeweled. But what about a deeper meaning behind it all? Where's that subtlety I rant about? Well, firstly, the characters' clothes change colour with each location in and out of the restaurant. Is there a better way of saying that a person is locked into this world world and can't escape it, then that their clothes mirror the environment around them. I mean, there is this option from Garden State. I don't necessarily hate it. He's a wallflower, literally, in the first act, and then we watch him break free by going on an adventure with a manic pixie dream girl. But it does lack subtlety. Another example is how Georgina's clothes are so restrictive. The second sex scene shows how much effort they must go to so she can free herself from such a soul-crushing garb, e.g. Spicker. I couldn't really get footage of this without showing a lot of nudity, so just go watch that scene for more context. Georgina is also at her most liberated in the film during two moments. Firstly, when she shows off how she's tailored an outfit to quickly rip it off for some lovely shenanigans, to ultimately be able to escape Spicker and embrace her lover without delay. Every minute counts when you're having an affair, after all. I mean, I suppose. I wouldn't know.
Don't cry for me. I'm already dead.
The other event occurs when later in the book depository she is completely naked and at ease with Michael. She's free from all restrictions and can be as pagan as her heart desires. And so there's another element. Fashion used to convey how a person is contained or repressed, and then fashion, or the lack of it, used to show that person breaking free. But of course, The Cook, the Thief, His Wife and Her Lover isn't a fashion show. Greenaway isn't here to sell you these clothes. They're costumes for a film, and as such he uses one art form to enrich another. Final copyright pause. Hope you're all doing well. I must be honest, I can't keep lying to you. I don't think I'll get a copyright hit on this review. I'm just doing this because I miss the old YouTube. As Aslan once said, do not cite the deep magic to me, witch. I was there when it was written. I was there when YouTube was the Wild West, and it was better back then because people weren't trying to act a certain way for engagement. You start to notice how heavily scripted a lot of these film review people are after you binge several of their videos. It gets to the point where you realize that they've got a paint-by-formula approach, indistinguishable from a Mr. Beast video, entirely designed for the algorithm. And I think it'd be better to let things be a little loosey-goosey, a little more like it was before people realized they could build an audience online and then sell them merch. I mean, I wouldn't mind selling merch. I could use the money, but I probably need to coin a catchphrase that I can copyright first. Like, I seduced Dana and Donna and all I got was this t-shirt. T-shirt. That could work. I'd probably be sued though. I'll keep brainstorming. So anyway, that's what I'm doing here. You're gonna know where all the bodies are buried, and then maybe you'll send me a salacious DM over Twitter. I'm playing 4D chess because the ladies love Ted Bundy. Some have even called me the straight Jeffrey Dahmer because I love to eat pussy. Badum. Tish. There's so much I could talk about with The Cook, the Thief, His Wife and Her Lover. I think there's an enormous amount of Christian humanism at play in the film, for instance, and it would further support my earlier comment about Greenaway playing in the land of Rabelais. There's also much which could be said about how Napoleon is distinguished from other world leaders by Greenaway during a particular Spicker rant. But I'll hit you with one final piece, which is pure schizo, because fuck it. So there was this filmmaker named Kenneth Anger, who recently passed away. God rest his soul. Well, Satan rest his soul, I guess. Now, some believe that his films, most notably Inauguration of the Pleasure Dome and Lucifer Rising, were genuine magical rituals which used the audience's focus, the energy we exhibit by paying attention to a film, to give the ritual greater power. I won't go into the theory behind focusing on a thing, but you can research an egregor if you'd like to know more. So, okay, we're in the bleeding edge of kooky now. Chuck those meds in the bin, mate, you won't need them here. Remember the number 32 and the word hex on Spicker's car? What if, hear me out, Greenaway designed this film to be a curse upon the ignorant bastards of England in the late 80s. He clearly associates them with the 1616 nobility, remember 32 is the sum, and he places that right alongside the word hex. Then consider this final shot. The poor, immigrants, abused women and children, the disrespected and mistreated artistic geniuses, all arrayed against the rapacious British elite personified in Spicker. And then they kill him. And we give this image power by channeling energy into it simply because we watched a movie. Food for thought. And yes, I should probably get a new hobby. I could maybe learn how to cook.
Cannibal.
In conclusion, I highly recommend you go watch The Cook, the Thief, His Wife and Her Lover. Even if you think everything I've just said is nonsense, go watch the film itself, because it's exquisite and you'd be doing yourself a great disservice by avoiding it. Now, if anyone got this far, then I really must say, mate, you're a legend. I don't take it for granted that you've just traded your invaluable time on this earth to watch this video, and I greatly appreciate you doing so. I hope you all have a good day and seduce that hottie you've been ogling at the laundromat. Thanks so much.